try this. So this is kind of cool. Got an idea for a video. Gonna try to look at the camera a little more. I never do that. My camera is up top. But this is kind of a special video. It is actually a little Easter egg, but this is actually my last day with Strategic Solutions company I've been with for close to 15 years now. I am moving on to a really exciting new opportunity. I am planning to join the team at Enforcer as an M365 solutions architect for North America, but it is my last day and I have two things I wanted to do. And one of those is to help them finalize some of the Enforcer configuration. And the other thing is to build one more alert for their monitoring package. And I thought, why not make a video of it and maybe help some people understand the mindset that goes behind how I started and built out this alert package, but also just the process to do it, to show how easy it can be and how much value we get out of it. I'm doing some of this live, so the video may be lengthy and some of it may not work perfectly. I'm kind of building it on the fly, but I'm going to do my best to try to go through what it is I'm doing and how I make it all happen. So yeah, let me share up my screen and we'll jump into this. All right. So you see a couple things. This is going to be VS Code where we're actually going to go through in the lab environment. We're going to build up this new alert. But I want to go through a couple things, and that is where I got the idea. So Jan Becker, awesome MVP and 365 solutions architect. He's intra ID, security, everything. Really look up to him, Daniel Bradley, a bunch of guys, Merrill Fernando, all of those guys in the space. And Jan had a post that I was like, this is great. And that's typically what happens. Nate Hutchinson has a post, or Nathan McNulty, or any of these guys have a post. And then I go, man, this is great. How could I apply this to what I do? And so I saw this post from Jan, and he talked about some of the automations and stuff actually in the last week with Merrill on Intra Chat. And, I know he loves this low code automation. He talked a little bit about Event Hub. And so this is a really cool idea. I love logic apps. I love automation. I talk about Bicep and all these things all the time. I don't really use Event Hub. Event Hub's awesome if you just want to send an event and then you want it gone. I want retention because, again, at an MSP, we want the retention. We want to be able to go in and do that incident response and forensics if needed, if there was an event. But I was like, I already, with my secure cloud baseline, I already set everything up to go to a log analytics workspace. And I was like, so unlike where he does this low code kind of solution where he's parsing the JSON and he's putting everything is like, hey, look for this condition, then send an alert. I was like, I can do that exact same thing through an Azure Monitor alert with KQL. And I can continue to modify the KQL later on if I need to. So it seemed like it'd be kind of a cool idea to go through how I started doing this and then what it ends up actually looking like, and then all the way to the point of the alert. So just like anything, I saw this and I was like, all right, I've gone through, some of the KQL stuff and I'm getting better with it, but I'm not an expert at any stretch, right? So, just like anyone does, I go into chat, I throw something, I say, hey, this is what I need to do. And it gives me an output, right? Chat, I am pretty confident chat's not going to replace me because this is what I get when I put in the chat result. I get nothing. So that's not very useful. So this is where understanding how KQL functions and the results and what I'm looking for really come in. So what I would typically do is I would say, okay, well, maybe let's break it down a little further. Let's not use that large query that it gave me. Let's just break it down. So what I'm doing is I'm searching the audit log and I'm looking for a category because in the audit log, it's looking for the category user management. So I'm like, okay, cool. Is there actual user management activity? Maybe there's just nothing in there. And then what I'm doing is I'm summarizing the count, so that's showing me what type of operations have occurred, or what things, what's the, I'm basically by activity display name and operation name. And so I've got some operation names in the activity display name. And I'm like, okay, there's actual activity. Okay, sweet. So this is good. There's data there. So now I want to parse that data. Well, before we get to that part, what I can do is I can break it down even further. And this is kind of this is the why and the how of what I do when I'm building an alert. I need to understand the data that's being presented. So I break this data down even further. So like what I would do next is I'm going to go, just give me all the data. So I can go run and get all the data. This is great. Now I've got the operation names. I've got, I know the categories user management, so I'm in the right category. So I'm definitely querying the logs for the correct thing. This is where it gets extremely interesting. So under the result description, I know what I'm trying to alert on, just like Jan writes about, right? What we want to do is we want to look for we're looking for authentication method changes. So we're looking for results in categories in user management where someone's adding an authentication method, adding, deleting, creating a new. Case in point, where this alert would have come in, we had a company that was compromised. And one of the first things the attacker did after they made their entry through what appeared to be a business email compromise, it could have just been a raw brute force. Honestly, this company did not have a strong security posture. But what they did is they registered a phone because, again, not a strong security posture. So they were allowed to register an MFA method for just SMS and voice. So what they did is they registered an MFA method and they called the MFA method free food, because they were so easy to compromise and so easy to get inside, that they were just basically taunting them at that point. Um, and so when I think about that, I can't help but go, man, we would have gotten an alert had I had an alert to send me that, random user on a Wednesday added a brand new authentication method. Now, there's pros and cons to this. There could be a lot of noise, right? Situations where someone's constantly generating taps to bootstrap someone. If you're looking at that, I mean, taps are critical, right? Then those type of things are gonna get alerted on. That's where KQL comes in. I mean, you could filter things out if you needed to. So you could say, I don't really want to know if, whatever this account generates a new alert, right? Whatever the case may be. Maybe you just want to monitor some critical accounts. In this instance, there shouldn't be a lot of this. We manage authentication methods for a lot of our clients. We are the ones doing it. So in our instance as an MSP, I do want to know when any of these operations take place. So again, kind of the mindset of what I'm going to do, what I do is I drill down through this data, right? And keep in mind, a lot of the KQL data is going to get returned into nested JSON or XML data. And so the big thing with KQL is to understand how to manipulate, create new tables, and parse the different JSON and XML data. So you can see all this. This is going to be nested data right here. You can see the information that's given back. So I mean, I could go. This is nested. It's giving me an IP address. Like I could take that data out and say, oh, what IP address are they coming from? But what I'm going to do here is, so once I actually look through the operation name, so what I was looking for here, and what I started to use was, I want these operations names. So I know because I went in and did some testing. So I added a tap, I added a new phone, I added different information into different user accounts so that I could get data. And so what I ended up with is this query right here. And you can see right here that there's some really good data in the result description. There's some aspects of it where I updated things. I actually updated the user information where nothing was returned. But here you can see, admin registered external authentication method. We have duos. I wanted to see if it would register, if that would show up in that way. Here's where I deleted a temporary access pass for a user, registered a new phone, registered a temporary access pass. This is awesome data, right? And so this is all valid stuff that I was looking for, and information that I want to be able to return. And so, again, the goal is you kind of parse through the operation names, the results, and the different data fields, and you go, okay, what is actually useful? What do I want to return back? And then what you can do is inevitably you're going to work your way through the KQL, and you're gonna use chats and more. You're going to project the things that you actually want. Here's where we're actually parsing through some of the strings. We're saying, okay, we want to get that user principal name that's nested right here, or the app display name that's nested, etc. And so what we're doing is we're actually taking that and then we're extending it into its own table here. So we've got, target user. We're going to have authentication methods. So we're going to take the authentication method. We're going to put that out. And basically we're going to then project this information. So this is what's projecting right here. So everything you see here is what was projected out after we sorted it. And then we're ordering it by time generated. So yeah, that's a great way to do it. So what I can do is I can now take, I would say this is most of the way there. So this will inevitably need work over time. And that's the beautiful thing about KQL is we can come back in. I have entire sheets. I am a crazy person and work in Apple Notes. So you'll notice like here on the side, I have a lot of Apple Notes. But one of the things, if I go KQL, I've got my KQL, demystifying KQL, all these great resources that exist on GitHub. But I mean, I have tons of KQL scripts that I've built that I use for different alerts, hoping to get some of this out into my GitHub and share out with the world. But yeah, just different things that I've built that I use for different types of alerting. I built one recently from a post from Nate Hutchinson, and I used the KQL alert, which he actually had the KQL alert, and I modified it and turned it into an Azure alert. And I did a post on that. But what I'm going to do in this video is actually I'm going to go all the way. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to show you how to create it into Bicep into an alert. And I kind of touched on it in that post, but I think the video will help show more of how I do this and help fill in some of the gaps, because I think this is the powerful thing. So we went from no alert, just an idea from a blog post, to somewhat actionable, usable alert. So one of the cool things you can do, and like I said, I'm doing this on the fly, so hopefully all this works. So I'm going to create a new alert. I'm not super concerned with the name or any of that stuff because I'm going to change all of it. But what I am concerned with is, so I've got the alert. I'm concerned with the interval. I'm going to do it every 15 minutes to actually check if something's happened, right? Because you want to know. I mean, so keep in mind, right? 15 minutes, the log's got to get there. So user does something. They've had 15 minutes in the environment. So I mean, you could turn that down, but you also got to keep in mind. Let's say 10 minutes. It's gonna continue to keep running in the background. I will say alerting does not cost a lot. We don't spend a lot. It's all about, the KQL storage and how much data you're storing there. But you're going to notice that the next thing I come to is all of those things that I'm projecting are going to be then a result in the alert that I can use. So I want to know the target user. I'm going to include all future values. And you want to do that because there could be a future value that you didn't anticipate. And as long as it's included and it falls under that table, you get it. So this alert's going to be kind of long. I want to know all this information. I want to know which app, who initiated it, correlation ID, result description, all of that. I want to know all the information, right? And so this gives you an example of what it would look like here. You can even see Azure Credential Configuration Endpoint is what it initiated, right? Because I was updating user management features in the authentication method. So that's the API and the backend that's being called to do that thing, that task. And then we're going to set, it's going to be a static alert. We're going to set the threshold. So if it's greater than 0, right, meaning it's happened one time, we want to get alerted on it. And I touch on some of this in the blog. Now, keep in mind, this isn't going to alert immediately because the KQL that I was testing, or that I have right here. So, and if you wanted to test it, you could actually view the results in the query. So this is a 24-hour range. I did not do this in the last 30 minutes. There are no results for the last 30 minutes. So I did this yesterday. So it's showing me, here's the data from a day ago that you did. So keep in mind, this isn't going to alert. We're gonna try to test an alert after. Okay, so we're gonna go back to editing. We've got everything selected. We've got our time values, threshold value greater than 0. We're good. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go over to actions, and I highly, highly always recommend using action groups. That's how I do everything. Um, I am going to do my Acme AZE to health. I use the health alerts as like global type alerts, and that's what I'm going to do there. VMs are like specific VM things. So we have VMs, we want to know CPU, disk space, monitoring, all that. They're pertinent to VMs, but health is like the overall, like what's the health of the tenant. So we use that for the Azure alerts, health alerts, and for intra type, account issues and things of that nature. So that's how I break it out. Just giving you some background insight there. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to details. And this is where some of the advanced information is. So you can see it's my lab tenant. I'm just going to say, warning, right? And you could make different levels of the alert. So say it happens to a high risk account. So you could make a separate one. And if you could put a let account equal or have an admin role, and you can make that a warning. Whereas just a generic user account, maybe it's not so much, it's just informational. So I could just make this the one that I have now, because it's everything just an informational alert. And then typically what I do is I follow a scenario. So if you look at how I do my alerts, I follow this premise. So I'm just going to kind of tape this in. So what this is this would be, because we're going to do all this in Bicep. So what's the name of the company, right? That's the company or the client ID. Region, I'm in AZ2, so Azure East 2. And then access management, say I can't do that because it's already a name, right? So I'm literally in this. This is going to be authentication method. Um, um, change. So we're just going to call this authentication method change, and then it's going to be alert. You could put, if you want to, you could put informational warning, but if there's a different thing, I'm just going to call it just alert. I'm actually I like to give credit to people where I get the ideas from. So I'm going to take Jan's thing and go, Jan thought of this, and I'm going to put it in the alert. That way, if I ever need to look back at it again, I can go, yeah, that's why I made it. This is where this came from, all those things. One of the things I'm going to do is I'm going to go into advanced options, though. This is one of the things I touched on in my blog post, is if those things start to happen, say one change is made, and it happened in the past 10 minutes, if you do not mute the action, it's going to exist there over a period of however long, and it's going to continue to alert. So what I do is I mute the action for a period of, depends on how often I want to get notified. So 6 hours is a great rule of thumb. If you think about that, beginning of the day, end of the day, end of the day, first thing in the morning, right? Like, so if it's something that you do want to get reminded of, do that. Storage alerts, I don't want to get reminded of that all day. Do it once in 24 hours. So I'll set this to like a muted 24 hours. It's just a way of keeping the alert fatigue down. The other way I keep it down is I ignore email. That keeps alert fatigue for sure down. Just don't look at your email. But that's not useful if I actually do need to see alerts. So a lot of what I do is with the action groups, I put a Teams channel on there so I can just focus on my teams. And that's where more of the actionable stuff comes, is to my team. But the same concept applies if you start getting alerted in Teams every couple of minutes and there's not really an actionable thing you're going to be able to do, you're just going to start ignoring it. So the idea is to keep it actionable. Just like any good architect, you should always be putting your tags. So I'm going to do, well, what's the technology? We're going to do KQL. That is what we're doing. Alert rule. Actually, we're going to do, let's see here. I'm thinking of this on the fly. Yeah. So the name is, it's going to be an alert rule. We're going to do, the value's going to be bicep. We're doing it. And then I'm going to do an owner tag. So we're going to do owner, and then I'm going to put me as the owner. So at the end of the day, a good rule of thumb is when you're deploying something, you should always have an owner tag. Who owns the thing? Who do you come back to if something's not working? So this is a alert rule that's going to be created using Bicep. The technology is KQL. That's how the alert is being generated. And then there's if it was, if it was an AVD deployment, I put technology, AVD, different type of things. If you want, you could put like the account manager. So like, if you knew who this was going to, what company, you would probably put a company tag. This is in my lab, so I could just say if I want to do this, I could do company. If it was an AVD deployment, I'd put technology, AVD, different type of things. If you want, you could put like the account manager. So like, if you knew who this was going to, what company, you would probably put a company tag. This is in my lab, so I could just say if I want to do this, I could do company and then lab. And so I know where this is deployed to. The reason I am not going to do this on this is because that tag would carry over. And so I don't want that to carry over. So yeah, cool. So yeah, so what we're going to do is we're going to create that. And you're like, man, I thought you said you were going to do this in Bicep. We are. So the reason I do that is because I don't like writing code. I like using code. So what we're going to do is we're going to go over to alerts. We're going to hit OK, and we're going to go to alert rules. And what we're going to look for is, what did we just call that thing? Acme. We're going to do Izzy E2. And then it was authentication method. So yeah, so cool. We're gonna just look at our authentication method. Now, this is the nicest thing that they have ever done. So what they used to do is it used to only be an ARM template, which is all JSON. This was stupid. Then I'd have to convert it. I'd use VS Code to convert it. It would botch a bunch of things up, and it was not fun. So they now have a Bicep template export. So this is awesome. If you didn't know what to do, you were trying to figure out what you're going to do, you may want this. I don't need any of this. I already have parameters in my secure cloud foundation code that's going to fill all these in with variables, which is what allows me to then use that to put somewhere else. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this, which is the actual code I need. And I'm going to come over here. We're going to fill this in. And you can actually see here that what it did, I think real time, is it just created a new alert here in my alert package. So let me see here. So let's go over here. I like being able to see things real time. So what it did is this right here. This alert is not currently working. So the first thing we need to do is we need to clean this up. So I'm going to get rid of all this. So now the resource is just authentication method change alert name. And I'm gonna get all this off. I don't need any of that. We're just gonna call it authentication method change alert. That is the name of the resource that I'm building. And so you can see right here, I'm gonna zoom in on it. It changed the name of the alert. That's cool. And what I'm going to do to try to make my life a little bit easier is I'm going to take this and I'm going to copy and paste. So I'm going to go, okay, there you go. That's already easier. And then I'm going to take this and we're going to change it to that. That's already looking a lot better. And then same thing, I'm going to take this and I'm going to change the display name, because that's what I want the display name of the alert to look like. So you can kind of see from previous examples, same thing. That's what we did there. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go, because I already know to grab, this from the action group side of things. This is the parameters that I've hard-coded. So you can see here, this parameter is just going to look at the subscription. It's going to pull the subscription ID, the resource group name. This is the same for every client. So I do every client the same way. They all have this exact same action group named this. And so all it does is for each client I deploy to, it just changes the client ID in the region. And this is what makes it so repeatable. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to grab this and I'm going to change this. And I'm going to talk through some of this code while we go through it. But basically, oh, I do need to also change that. So you can see here, the cool thing that it did is what that export did by creating it in the GUI the way I did, it took that KQL and it converted the entire query into JSON for me. So this is the exact same KQL query, but formatted into JSON. I didn't have to do any of that. It did it all for me. It included all the values. It included everything. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to just, let me copy the action group real quick so I get this up to date. That's good. You're going to notice right there, window size, PTM, evaluation frequency, PTM. I could have sworn I said a mute action. Yep, right here. Mute action duration, PT 6 hours. So that's what that's the actual mute window that it's gonna be alerting for. Now the last thing I need to do is I need to set the scope, and the scope is essentially the workspace ID. So I need to also use a variable for that. I'm not gonna sit here. So you can see here, same thing as before. I'm gonna copy this. This is the actual parameter for the AED law, which is going to be the same for each client that we deploy. And that is literally as simple as it is. So if you go look now, there's my alert. The alert is now added into the package. So there's a ton of alerts. There's so much stuff over here. I'm not going to mess with this. But what I'm going to do is let's just delete this because you saw that I made it manually, but that's not the cool part. The cool part is seeing that I can make it with Bicep. So we're going to delete this. This no longer exists. So if I go and I refresh, there we go. GUI's weird. It acts crazy. The alert no longer exists. It is now all cleared. So I've updated my code. I'm going to get AZ context. I'm connected to my subscription ID and my tenant. So what I'm going to do is I am going to go run. So the alert rule is just a module that gets called. Like I said, this is a massive package. It's got logic apps, it's got automation runbooks, it's got everything. So these are all individual modules that exist inside of it. So I updated the alerts module. All the other stuff I did not update yet. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my main build. So I've got my main build that calls these modules. So this could be a pipeline, right? Like I could have updated that. And if there was a pipeline built or a GitHub action, it would have said, oh, I pushed that up. I would get status. I would, I'd go through get status, push everything up. I'm not going to, yep. Okay. Yep. So we're not going to do that. Don't care about that right now. But basically it would trigger an action to then go and push this out. We're going to do it very manually. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go here and deploy Bicep. I've got to allow, I'm going to select my account that I'm connected to. I'm going to select my subscription. I'm going to select the resource group. And I'm going to select my parameters.json file. It could also be a Bicep param. There's some tricks with Bicep versus JSON, things you want to know the difference with. But for now, I'm just going to do that. And then it is going to pop up some of the values, but it's just return, return, return. All those are already they're either hard coded or set in the param file. So that's it. And then what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to come, I'll just open this in a new window and hope it doesn't mess up. So if you open this up in a new blade, of course it completely messes up. That's how you know this video is authentic. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the resource group and I'm going to go to the deployments. And you can see right here, here's my actual alert. Don't worry about that. That is because I'm rerunning code and this stuff already exists. Can't recreate these. There's conflicts there. Ignore that. What we care about is this. This is what we just updated. And I guarantee you, if we look at this, it's going to show authentication method change alert was created. So see how everything else already existed? Bicep is idempotent. So it's just going to say, does it exist? It does. Cool. So it's not going to do anything. It didn't change any of that. But there were two alerts. I guess I didn't actually create this one already. I don't know. I could have sworn I did. But yeah, so what it did is it created this alert. So now if I go back to monitor and I go back to, I know how to do this, making a video on it, right? Alerts. I go to alert rules and I copy in. There you go. There's the alert. So we went from nothing, just an idea from a blog post of very awesome dude, I do say so myself, to a full-blown KQL query and alert configuration. And so you can see here, it's done everything just how we did in the GUI. It's also, it's highlighted because I've got auth, but it is the same query. If I come back and I take a look at it, I'm going to see probably a lot of the same data. Again, I'm doing this real on the fly. There is all the data. Okay, so cool. Now, keep in mind, I haven't actually done anything. So it's not going to just start immediately sending alerts, but now I have it ready to go to send alerts. And that's kind of the point of the video. So I'm going to cut it there and cool. Have a good one. Very cool. Later.